I don't know if everybody has seen, but it's loud and proud and out there now. I told you before there was obviously a split between some of the, MAGA folks with Israel. And now we're also seeing a split when it comes to Venezuela and what just happened. And some of the people that said they were against intervention, US intervention, are now all of a sudden being exposed. They're literally playing in our faces. First one up is Matt Walsh. Matt Walsh, I want to show you what he said before. Z Squirrel pointed out, you are owned by Zionist Ben Shapiro. You are a slave. This is what Matt Walsh, who's one of the hosts of the Daily Wire, this is what he said before, right? So prior to Maduro's kidnapping. We've spent the last 25 years bringing freedom and democracy to countries around the globe, while our own country has been systemically invaded, and now our largest cities are run by foreigners and communists. He always has to bring in the culture war. You know how he is. Like, he thrives on that. If you want to know why I'm so avowedly non-interventionalist, this is why. So this was just June of 2025. So this wasn't a long time ago. And Matt Walsh was all out there like, no, I'm against US intervention, because we spoke before about how US intervention leads to displacement, right? So he said he was against it because he doesn't want those foreigners here. He's like, I don't want those foreigners or those commies here in the United States. He had to do the culture war thing because he makes a lot of money off of that. So now it's just everybody's being exposed. Now Matt Walsh is making excuses for what just happened to Maduro. Now all of a sudden he's totally fine. And this is the statement. A lot of people are calling him out. Yes, I oppose fighting decade-long wars half a world away to bring democracy to Islamic tribesmen. See, he always got to make everything about identity. That's the thing that kills me. On the other hand, I support a 90-minute military operation against an adversarial communist government in our own hemisphere to directly benefit America and its people. There is no contradiction between these two positions. Not every military action is the same as every other. And this is Viva Free. A lot of people have been calling him out. Viva Free is also right-wing, I believe. And Viva Free said going to war to secure vital resources for your own people was totally legitimate. Wow, how quickly people change. Never thought I'd pick a Twitter fight with Matt Walsh, but here we are. And he's pointing out when Matt Walsh said this also in June, the U.S. has been at war with one random Middle East country after another for my entire adult life. It's baffling that there are people who want this to continue. Can we focus on our own problems for a change? Is that such a radical suggestion? So again, guys, it's not like he said these things 3, 4, or 5 years ago. That was just in 2025. I mean, so it wasn't long ago. And what I predict, and we'll go back to this part here, is that Matt Walsh, all these people part of the Daily Wire, also got a call. The same way people got that call about Israel, I think they got this call about Venezuela. Some of them may surprise you as well. But Matt Walsh here, when he says it's in our hemisphere, so he is now telling you that the United States owns the hemisphere now. You see that type of colonial mindset? It's our hemisphere. We own it. When there were people here long before any of us. Any of us. But he's being called out, right? Now, he's a part of the Daily Wire, and of course, like Ben Shapiro supports this as well. So basically, and Ben Shapiro is his boss. So he's doing what his boss told him to do. People are being contradicted in real time, folks. Another one is Nick Fuentes, who now is all of a sudden walking back. And we're going to see the before and after. Let me go ahead and bring this up here of what he said prior to the kidnapping of Maduro about Venezuela and what he is saying now. Let's go ahead and bring this before the kidnapping.
Who cares if Venezuela is run by some corrupt, petty tyrant? It's South America. They're all like that. It's always been like that. Who cares if Venezuela is run by some corrupt, petty tyrant? It's South America. They're all like that. It's always been like that. Just take their shit. Get as many countries on our side of the ledger so that we can take their shit. I don't know. Is that complicated? But on the other side of this debate, you have the ideological neocons like Rubio, like John Ratcliffe, the CIA director. You have these other people that insist, no, that's not good enough. We need a U.S. puppet in place. We need this female resistance leader that's pro-democracy. Their election was fake. Dude, our election was fake. You think our elections are real? They said Maduro lost the 2024 election. Yeah.
We can't play this part, so hold on just a second. That's a YouTube thing. That's not a me thing. So we can play this part right here.
Start with that.
This is a historic phone call.
I actually probably favor regime change in Venezuela, to be honest. I think that is a perfectly legitimate strategic goal of the United States. You know,
he, out of all the people, is really getting ratioed on X, on social media, him of all people, because people are like, well, there's flip-flop Fuentes once again. Flippity floppity. They all got the call. They got the call. You better get in line for this one. I don't care if you're anti-war. I don't care if you're against regime change. You better get on board for this one, ladies and gentlemen. And you better tell your audience to support it, because right now the numbers show, the polls show the majority of Americans do not support what just happened in Venezuela. And that's on both sides of the aisle. Right? So we're going to get to the ones that feel differently in just a second. But he is one of the ones that a lot of people are coming after, and they're like, dude, you're a fraud. Someone made used the track APAC thing. I don't know if they made this or someone made it themselves, and said Nick Fuentes, leader of America First, the Zionist, ran cover for Israeli involvement in Kirk's death, called for jailing and censorship of anti-Zionists, got the call. I think it's interesting how everybody says it's got the call now.
United States. You know, we talk all the time about Israel and the war over there, and those are wars that don't benefit the United States. At a pro-American regime in Venezuela probably would be good for us because of the resources they have.
Yeah, that's essentially, as I told you guys before, that's colonialism. That's really what it is. Let's just take their resources and all these things. How it started. Nick Fuentes says in just the last week, Trump called to reinvade Afghanistan, vowed to help Ukraine defeat Russia, and is currently pushing for regime change in Venezuela. And it's only a matter of time before Israel drags us to war with Iran again. What happened to no new wars? That was September of 2025. Fast forward, Nick Fuentes, USA, of course, January 3rd, 2026, after they kidnapped Maduro. So people are calling it out.
And I just want to enjoy today and this week and this month and even the rest of this year.
And of course, that's Nat Rothschild. Well done, Donald J. Trump, right? So people are calling out all of those that said they were against regime change and they're non-interventionalists who now all of a sudden got the call to fall in line. So far we have seen Matt Walsh, we've seen Nick Fuentes, and then we got Alex Jones. And shout out to Dave DeCamp. I don't know if everyone follows him on X, but Dave DeCamp he's really good at ratioing people on X. He's really good at doing that. He said, "Thank you, Alex Jones, for providing a clip from a TV show that the CIA helped produce to explain to us why we need war with Venezuela." Alex Jones, also, no more regime change, no more wars. Alex Jones says for people who are geopolitically illiterate and don't understand why Trump did what he did, this may help. You are witnessing a return to the Monroe Doctrine. And he's sharing this show And I forget the name of this show, but that's the guy from The Office. Some of you might recognize him. We can't play the show on here because of copyright, but that's the guy from The Office. And that was a show where it's the CIA. Like, it's a CIA show. And I mean, they're basically promoting the need for war with Venezuela. I saw one episode of that show. I never finished the rest of it, but that's what it is. It's a CIA show, right? So Alex Jones, another one that is being called out because people are flippity flopping. Everybody got the call. They're literally playing in our faces, but there are some true ones that are not flip flopping. And one of them is Thomas Massie. So you're about to see that split happen. He has not wavered on his position about these regime change wars. And I want you to hear what he says here.
Previous presidents told us to go to war over WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, that did not exist. Now it's the same playbook, except we're told that drugs are the WMDs. This is about oil and regime change. Mr. Speaker, James Madison warned us that in no part of the Constitution is more wisdom to be found than in the clause which confides the question of war and peace to the legislature and not the executive. Madison called it the crown jewel of Congress. The framers understood a simple truth. To the extent that war-making power devolves to one person, liberty dissolves. If the president believes military action against Venezuela is justified and needed, he should make the case and Congress should vote before American lives and treasure are spent on regime change in South America. Let's be honest about likely outcomes. Do we truly believe that Nicolas Maduro will be replaced by a modern-day George Washington? How did that work out? In Cuba, Libya, Iraq, or Syria, previous presidents told us to go to war over WMDs, weapons of mass destruction, that did not exist. Now it's the same playbook, except we're told that drugs are the WMDs. If it were about drugs, we'd bomb Mexico or China or Colombia, and the president would not have pardoned Juan Orlando Hernandez.
This is the important part, right? So like people like Thomas Massie, when you see him give this speech, you understand why Donald Trump and Miriam Adelson and other billionaires have collaborated together to try to get him out of his seat. That's happening right now as we speak. And I never would have thought, if someone would have told me years ago, you're going to agree with Thomas Massie on something, I would have never believed it. I would have said, yeah, right. But here we are. And we're here because there are some that said they don't support these wars. They don't support regime change. And no matter how much pressure they got from the leaders of their party, they didn't pivot. They didn't change their mind. And that's why they're after him right now. Like they're attacking him left and right. Donald Trump just wrote this long ass statement on Truth Social talking about why Thomas Massie needs to go because he's not willing to support his wars and all this stuff. So if you know much about Thomas Massie, you know he's a big like money dude, right? Like he's really into the numbers. He's complained a lot about the debt. Although if I ever had the opportunity to speak to him, I would explain to him that, you know, according to modern monetary theory, there is no such thing as a real debt. The debt ceiling is actually a myth. If you look at MMT. So if I had the chance to talk to him, I would explain that to him. But he's a big one about like, we shouldn't be spending all this money on this and that and stop sending money to Israel and all these other countries. And he also does not take money from the Israeli lobby. So I think he's one that they've been looking to kind of push out for quite some time. He has become much more vocal this year. And of course, also backing the supporters in the Epstein case as well.
This is about oil and regime change. And when it comes to regime change, we've already been down this road with Venezuela with nothing to show for it. In 2019, we recognized Juan Guaido. We seized their embassy here in D.C. We were told that regime change was imminent. Years later, Maduro remains in power. Today, we're told to place our hopes in other exiled figures. Edmundo Gonzalez and Maria Corina Machado. I wish them well, I do. But Congress should not express moral sympathy in the form of a blank check for military escalation and American lives. And let's take a moment to acknowledge the contradiction at the heart of this policy. This administration tells us that the Maduro regime is made up of narco-terrorists, and by escalating toward war, we would predictably create countless refugees. At the same time, this administration has moved to end temporary protected status for hundreds of thousands of Venezuelans and deports them back to the very regime it condemns. So which is it? Are we prepared to receive swarms of the 25 million Venezuelans who will likely become refugees and billions in American treasure that will be used to destroy and inevitably rebuild that nation? Do we want a miniature Afghanistan in the Western Hemisphere?
That's essentially what it could be, right? Another Afghanistan.
If that cost is acceptable to this Congress, then we should vote on it as a voice of the people and in accordance with our Constitution. And yet today, here we aren't even voting on whether to declare war or authorize the use of military force. All we're voting on is a war powers resolution that strengthens the fabric of our republic by reasserting the plain and simple language in the Constitution that Congress must decide questions of war. I urge support for this resolution, and I yield back. Gentleman, time.
By the way, I don't know who this guy is, but he's in the shot the entire time. This guy, right? I don't. So sorry about that guy. I think we got the rest there. Yeah. So Thomas Massie there, speaking what he feels, what he means, not willing to back down, not willing to cave to pressure, right? And there's been a lot of pressure towards him from the Trump administration. Like, you better get in line, right? Same thing with Marjorie Taylor Greene, who also is not willing to bend the knee. And you guys know, like, she's heading out now. But Marjorie Taylor Greene was on, I believe this is Meet the Press. Yeah. So she was on Meet the Press, and the host for some reason was very happy to see her. That's the funny part. But she was on Meet the Press, and she's against this as well. So I'm looking for consistency. And I don't know about everybody else, but I'm looking for people who are consistent regardless who is in the White House in that time. So regardless if it's a Democrat in the White House or Republican in the White House, I'm looking for the people who are consistent on the issues and don't run cover for their party just because they are told to bend the knee. And so Marjorie Taylor Greene, like I told you when I said, you know, she got those threats, her son got threatened, and she realized also it's a sinking ship. So she's heading out. But I want you to hear what she said about this.
Welcome back. And joining me now is Republican Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. Congresswoman, welcome to Meet the Press.
She is very happy to see her. I don't think I have ever seen Kristen that excited to see Marjorie Taylor Greene on Meet the Press. Kristen is like, hello, welcome.
Thanks for having me this morning.
Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. Tomorrow is your last day in Congress, so incredibly significant to have you here today, Congresswoman. You and President Trump, of course, had an extraordinary break last year. We'll talk all about that in just a moment. But I do want to talk about something you said this weekend in the wake of this attack against Venezuela, removing Nicolas Maduro. You said that the administration's actions were not America first. Now, the president was asked about this idea yesterday. I want to play that clip and get your reaction on the other side. Take a look.
Mr. President, why is running a country in South America America first?
Well, I think it is because we want to surround ourselves with good neighbors. We want to surround ourselves with stability. We want to surround ourselves with energy. We have tremendous energy in that country. It's very important that we protect it. We need that for ourselves. We need that for the world.
Why do you disagree, Congresswoman?
Well, you know, I served on the Homeland Security Committee for 3 years, and I am overwhelmingly in support of a strong border. I impeached Secretary Mayorkas. Those were my articles of impeachment that passed the House because fentanyl overdoses skyrocketed to 280% in my own district. And the majority of American fentanyl overdoses and deaths come from Mexico. Those are the Mexican cartels that are killing Americans. And so my pushback here is if if this was really about narco-terrorists and about protecting Americans from cartels and drugs being brought into America, the Trump administration would be attacking the Mexican cartels. Now, I am not defending Maduro, and of course, I'm happy for the people of Venezuela to be liberated, but Americans celebrated the liberation of the Iraqi people after Saddam Hussein. They celebrated the liberation of the Libyan people after Gaddafi, and this is the same Washington playbook that we are so sick and tired of, that doesn't serve the American people, but actually serves the big corporations, the banks, and the oil executives. And so my pushback here is on the Trump administration that campaigned on Make America Great Again, that we thought was putting America first. I want to see domestic policy be the priority that helps Americans afford life after 4 disastrous years of the Biden administration. I want to see domestic policies that prioritizes jobs and affordable housing for Americans after 4 disastrous years of the Biden administration. And I want to see domestic priorities that put Americans first in regards of healthcare. Health insurance costs too much, car insurance, home insurance. And these are issues that matter to Americans. We don't consider Venezuela our neighborhood. Our neighborhood is right here in the 50 United States, not in the Southern Hemisphere.
Now, she almost got it there. She came very close. Again, if I had the opportunity to speak to her, I would tell her there's nothing wrong with defending Maduro. Like I would tell her that, right? Like, and I think, you know, she's on her way out now. So Marjorie Taylor Greene out of Congress, I think that's going to give her some time to get away from that DC swamp, and just to do some research of her own. But if I were to speak to her, I would tell her there's nothing wrong with defending Maduro, and we can get into the details and the specifics about that. But what she said there hits right back at home, right? She's saying, what about the domestic policies? What about the domestic issues right here? Because you see, here's the thing. This isn't 2016 anymore. It's also not 2020. And this time around, when you run a campaign on, you know, America first, or trying to benefit the American people, implement policies that's going to help the American people, turns out people really wanted that. And there were people that really took that seriously, considering the fact that we're coming out of a pandemic and we're coming out of an economy after a pandemic. And there was so much going on economically in this country. So when Donald Trump said those things, a lot of people did believe it, that he was going to get it right back on track, which is what he said he was going to do. And Marjorie Taylor Greene supported him all the way. But it looks like to me, she's one of the ones that's being consistent. And that's what I'm looking for, folks. I'm not looking to see, you know, what team you're on. I'm looking to see, are you consistent on the issues? Because it would have been easier for Marjorie Taylor Greene to just go along with what Donald Trump told her to do. It would have been easier for her not to stand by the victims of Epstein and not to collaborate with Ro Khanna and Thomas Massie in pursuing that type of justice. It would have been easier for her not to speak out against what Israel was doing. She came kind of late. She came kind of late, but she came. It would have been easier for her not to speak out against, you know, even with Venezuela. Career-wise, that would have been the easy thing to do. But she didn't go there. And I think what's interesting to me is that when people say, I'm mad because I'm seeing leftists say good job to MTG, but they're not saying that to AOC. And I think the difference is that when Biden was in office, we were asking people like AOC to stand up to Joe Biden publicly. She would not do it. Marjorie Taylor Greene stood up to Donald Trump publicly, to the point where he started going after her and calling her a traitor, to the point where her family was getting death threats. Because you see, when you come Johnny come lately, after the president is already, you know, Biden's already out, and then you do this town hall with Bernie and you say, well, you know, we were trying to push him behind the scenes. Ain't nobody got time for that. Nobody knows what you really did behind the scenes. What we do know is what you did not do publicly. And I think that takes more guts. So this split over Venezuela, Marjorie Taylor Greene not going along with the others and saying, yeah, get him, great job, President Trump. Marjorie Taylor Greene saying fentanyl is not even produced in Venezuela, which is what I've been telling people. It's not. And then here's the other thing. Let's say you do have, your big issue is fentanyl. And we have had a problem in this country with fentanyl overdoses, especially in the rural communities. You know where a lot of that also came from? The Sackler family. Why isn't Donald Trump, the Trump administration, why aren't they going after the Sackler family? Why is Richard Sackler still walking free? We're talking about a family that killed thousands of people in coal mining towns, in red districts, killed all those people and got away with it because they're rich. We're talking about a family that basically bribed the FDA to put a label on their product that basically tells you it was safe for you when it was not. We're talking about, I'm sorry, I have a big issue with the Sackler family. We're talking about a family that even after they knew that people were dying from Oxycontin, continued to push it to doctors to sell. So why aren't they going after them? What do you think Oxycontin is? Now, eventually, of course, there was this big hearing with Congress, but people have to understand that was years later. You know how many people died over the years from Oxycontin? It took a long time for it even to reach Congress. But they don't go after those people. So she is being consistent. Let's go on a little bit more here.
Well, let me ask you, because President Trump says he gets to decide what America First means. Does America First mean whatever President Trump says it does?
You know, America First should mean what was promised on the campaign trail in 2024. So my understanding of America First is strictly for the American people, not for the big donors that donate to big politicians, not for the special interests that constantly roam the halls in Washington, and not foreign countries that demand their priorities put first over Americans. America First actually means for the American people, and the American people have been put last consistently decades and decades by both political parties for far too long. My kids' generation, my kids are 22, 26, and 28, are looking at a future where this whole entire generation doesn't think they'll ever see a Social Security check. They don't believe they'll ever be able to afford to own their own home. And 50-year mortgages are really a slap in the face. It's insulting. Americans don't want $2,000 stimulus checks as a payoff. They want to have good policies brought forth for them, because you want to know something, Kristen? They voted for this administration, and their small dollar donation should matter. And MAGA has its own enemy list, and the enemies of the world are not on their enemy list, and they're tired of being ignored.
So there you have it, right? Bringing up those domestic issues that a lot of people are concerned about. Listen, anytime I'm hanging out with my friends, or if I just running into people at the gym or the grocery store, or all these little bits of places that I go to throughout the week, nobody ever comes up to me in conversation. Nobody ever said, man, I sure am worried about that Maduro. Wonder how he's treating people down there in that Venezuela. Nobody ever says, did you hear that Nicolas Maduro is a dictator? No one ever says in conversation to me, I heard Nicolas Maduro actually didn't win that election. You know what people do say to me? I don't know if I'm even going to get Social Security by the time I'm old enough to get it. I hope I don't get laid off, because I don't know what I'm going to do about the health insurance situation. I hope my gas doesn't go up. I hope my landlord doesn't increase my rent again next year. Those are the things that people say to me. The average American is not sitting back thinking about what Nicolas Maduro is doing in Venezuela. The average American is not. Now, here's something else that you guys need to see. I found this pretty interesting here as well. they are really playing in our faces, and they are getting desperate because you see, now the Zionists, they really got Christian Zionist pastors out here telling people that God said all of Venezuela's oil rightfully belongs to the United States. I kid you not. Listen.
They say you have seized Venezuela for the oil. Yes, this is true, that there is that which has been brought to the forefront of this earthly battle. But the enemy has sought and was seeking to bring war and to bring conflict through Venezuela and to control the oil of the earth. But the spiritual oil and the natural oil does not belong to the forces of darkness or to those who thought that they could bring a one world order. This is my reset. And the oil of the natural and the oil of the spirit is mine, says the Lord.
Jesus ain't tell you that. So you see what's happening? They're so desperate now, they're using Christian pastors to tell people that the oil belongs to us. Is that what the Bible taught? And people not even using the brain and like to see what the Bible said. And people say all these things that the Bible does not even say. It's stealing. So do people think that Jesus would say oil for you, but not for them? Yeah, you guys go take all that oil. It's meant for the United States, not for the Venezuelans. Does that sound like something Jesus would have said in the Bible for those who went to church? Does that sound biblical to you? It is theater at this point. It is theater at this point, ladies and gentlemen. They are playing in our face. There's no way, and I say this because I know there's people in that congregation who actually are sitting there and they're believing everything this guy is saying. He's a clown. So they're trying to do everything that they can to get you on board with more war. And they're going to use teachers. They're going to use pastors. They're going to use musicians, Zionist musicians, celebrities, athletes. They're going to use whoever they can as a tool, including those that are a part of MAGA that said they were non-interventionalists, like the Alex Jones, like the Matt Walsh, like the Nick Fuentes. People just be out here saying anything, just literally anything. And a lot of this goes back to the Isaac Accords. You know, we talk quite a bit about the Abraham Accords on this show, not as much about the Isaac Accords. Milei announces the launch of the Isaac Accords in a meeting with Israel's foreign minister. Check this out. Argentina has formally launched the Isaac Accords, a new initiative aimed at strengthening political, economic, and cultural cooperation between Israel and Latin America. This is a kicker, folks. The Isaac Accords is a thing, and that's the next step for Israel, right? To have that force with Latin America. So they have the Abraham Accords, and they also have the Isaac Accords. So people have to pay attention to what is going on. They have their foot in Syria, Lebanon. They have their foot in Somaliland, in other countries in Africa, and now the Isaac Accords with Latin America. So when we talk about a lot of this that's happening with even with Venezuela, we also got to remember, someone sent this to me, thank you so much. We got to remember the Isaac Accords as well. A lot of these roads do lead back to Israel. So they're just playing in our face. And if that was your pastor, I feel sorry for you. Leave that church, go somewhere else. It's a damn shame. But you all can see it. Another split here happening, this time over Venezuela. Interesting. Hey guys, this was a Sabby clip. If you like what you saw, hit that like button and subscribe.